Hi everyone, this is Joe LaGiglia with the Mortgage Message Show, and on today's episode, I have a very special guest, top leader in the mortgage industry, Barry Habib of MBS Highway. Enjoy. Barry.
Hey, how are you?
Doing so good, sir. I'm so glad you jumped on a couple minutes early. We're actually Facebook Live right now. Wanted to make sure that everything was working, and it appears that it is. And I just am getting everybody tagged in here, so we have a really big audience for the incredible information you're going to share here today. So thanks for jumping on a couple minutes early, Barry.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. I will tell you in advance of the interview that we get started here. I'm a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot of bit of a fanboy. So if you hear me get a little choked up or a little nervous, it's very uncommon for me, but you're on my Mount Rushmore, sir. So,
brother, thank you. That's really kind of you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, well, let's get into it because I just think it's so valuable the time that you've offered and linking up just thousands of realtors and loan officers to this interview through various groups, and super excited to be able to share this moment with you. So, welcome, Barry Habib, to the Mortgage Message Show. Super excited to be able to introduce you. I want to do a great job. There's a lot of people that you need no introduction for. But there's people I know who are watching right now and getting ready to enjoy this interview that have never heard of Barry Habib, have never heard of MBS Highway. So I want to give you a little bit of an introduction, but I'd love to start the interview by you sharing a little bit about your background as well. But if you know Barry Habib, you know him to be a media mogul. He's a true American success story. Barry has been named one of the top originators in our country many, many times. He has actually left the origination business, has done a ton of exciting ventures we're going to get into in this interview. But Barry has done over $2 billion of personal mortgage originations in his career. I think a great fact, and I love to share this just so you know I did my homework, Barry was doing that type of volume when jumbos were at 133,000 folks. So that's a big deal. Well, right now we're at 510,000 for a jumbo. So Barry, as we kind of get into all the different facets that we're going to speak to a real estate agent, loan officer audience, consumers who are watching that are excited about the value they can learn and prepare and be better off in their lives for, just kind of give a quick introduction to who you are and what you're all about.
Well, as you mentioned, was in the origination business. Then from there, started a company that alleviated a big point of friction in the industry and understanding what the financial markets were doing and interest rates were doing, and built that into a company that became pretty ubiquitous within the industry, and then sold that and went on to doing some fun things, started Rock of Ages on Broadway, and then it became international. It was the 27th longest running show in Broadway history. Did some acting, had a good time with that. Had been in 9 movies with some reasonably good roles. Had a medical imaging business, which built and sold to a very successful level that really also removed a point of friction. You know, when you go for a scan, and I hope nobody ever has to, but when people do, there's a lot of anxiety because the tech's there and they know what's going on. They just can't communicate that to you. And sometimes you have to wait several days before your physician tells you. So that can create a lot of anxiety. So we just said, let's eliminate that and have a center that has a radiologist right there so that by the time you were done with your scan and getting dressed and sat down, you had exactly what was going on. If it's good news, you left there feeling great. And if it wasn't the best of news, at least you had a plan. So that became successful and sold that. And then I moved on to MBS Highway, and MBS Highway has been just an amazing blessing. It's become very ubiquitous in the mortgage industry right now. It's very respected, where we help people understand the real estate market, the mortgage market, and the opportunities, and giving them tools to be able to better understand and interpret and communicate what's going on to their customers, help them make better decisions, better choices, really change their life for the better. And along the way, I've been a professional speaker for 28 years now. Can't believe how the time goes, but that's been wonderful to try and help and educate, inspire individuals in mortgage and real estate. And I've written a wonderful book that's going to be released October 27th called Money in the Streets. And that's a book that'll help you whether you're going through a tough time, which we all do, to help you get through it. If you're going through a great time, help you maximize it, but really to help you identify opportunities. There's no shortage of opportunities, but we really have never been taught how to find them and how to capitalize on them. And that's what really this book will help you do in a very inspiring way. So that'll be released October 27th. You can pre-order on Amazon. And the other thing is we've just started a certification that's designed for people in the mortgage industry, but people in the real estate industry could certainly do it too. It's all the things you never really learned about how the financial markets work that'll really help you be a greater professional and truly an advisor. People call themselves an advisor. I say that's, you're not an advisor because you put it on your name tag. You really have to be able to walk the walk, and this will really help you do that. So I've done some really fun and exciting things that I've been very fortunate enough to be able to participate in.
Yeah, so exciting. I want to just give a little bit of a personal testimony to really put an exclamation point on that background as it relates to my introduction to you and what it's meant to me in my career in the mortgage industry. 2015, I was introduced to you for the first time, and it was an immediate unlock of taking my identity as a mortgage loan originator from someone that was transactional to someone that created relationships that truly had not just the immediate benefit to the client, but the long-term result of staying with that client and planning with them for the future. And it was an amazing moment for me. I started my family. I had my first daughter in 2015. That was 5 years ago. It was kind of a moment for me that I said, hey, I'm going all the way in this industry. I'm going to be a lifer. And so if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And as the universe says, when the student's ready, the teacher shows up. And there you were. From that moment to now, it's been an amazing journey being able to follow you, build a relationship with you every single day through your daily videos, daily updates. And I think I want to kind of kick off the interview by saying, just in these last 4 years, we've seen so much happen within the industry. So much of the audience today is real estate agents and mortgage loan officers. I think a question on the show that we run daily here is, what is the potential forecast for the future? So I want to start with one portion of that question. To the real estate agents who are watching, we're here regionally speaking here in the Midwest, but all over really. We're in a seller's market where there's not enough inventory out there. I hear you talk about it all the time. To the agents who are watching, how can they prepare, or how can they serve their audience, their clientele right now in this incredible seller's market where there's not enough inventory to meet the demand, and kind of the intricacies of what all that means? So
first of all, thank you for your kindness, and God bless you and your daughter, brother. That's a great story, and I really appreciate your kind words. Now, I think we do a good job in forecasting real estate. I mean, we call the real estate market well. In fact, as you might know, Zillow named me the top real estate forecaster in the United States, not once, but twice. I got the award in 2018 and also in 2020, but that was respectively for 2017's forecast and 2019's forecast.
Well deserved.
So thank you, brother. So we think we do a good job of understanding the marketplace, the real estate marketplace, and when many people really had gotten it wrong, we look at things like you mentioned, like demographics, and we look at employment, and we look at interest rates, and combine all these factors geographically. And in your marketplace, and really, as you mentioned as well, throughout the United States, we have been very bullish, but we continue to be. There's just not enough inventory. Vacancies are nil. So there isn't the impetus to reduce prices. Interest rates are going to remain low. Now, they might move up a little bit here and there, and that might affect refinances more, but we're in a really strong position. And this transitory position we're in with employment, if anything, as we get past this, and, God willing, we get some sort of a very good therapeutic response or really good testing, which is starting to show up on the horizon. Abbott Labs today talking about making available for $5 a 15-minute test, which can really go a long way in building confidence with people that you can do at home. We think that there is some real hope that within the next 12 months, maybe even sooner, that we get to a more stable environment for feeling good about health and this virus being less of an issue. And remember, the virus itself, the curious thing about viruses is that the virus wants to live, and viruses are smart. So the virus knows that by killing its host, it dies itself. So what it probably will do, what we see with most viruses over time, they tend to have less severity. So while it still can be a mess, the chances of dying from it will abate. And let's just hope we can eradicate it, right? But in either case, the point that I'm trying to make here is, as the economy begins to come back, we feel more comfortable, businesses come back stronger, employment's going to get stronger, and that's only going to put another wing on this jet that is the real estate market. So if you're a realtor out there, or a mortgage professional, or somebody just looking for a home, you probably know this, but according to Redfin, 56% of homes have a bidding war on them right now. So if the home's priced reasonably well, there are going to be multiple offers, and a lot of times you're going to come in over asking price. So we have to change our mindset right now from, am I buying a home or am I winning a home? And right now you have to think about it almost as winning the home. The National Association of Realtors said that for every 10 listings that come out, you get 9 contracts. So that just goes to show you the appetite that is out there right now. And I feel that we are oftentimes confronted with something that we don't want to do. Nobody likes to come in over asking price. So you have to be able to properly evaluate that. One of the tools that we have is a way to take the current automated valuation method, model on the house, and then in addition to that, take the asking price, and because we know the forecasted appreciation for each zip code, tell you how long it will take you to overcome the amount that, which you don't want to do, bid over asking price, that premium you're paying. How long do you recoup that? In many cases, it's just a matter of a few months. And this way, it'll give you a better evaluation procedure as to, well, if it's a few months anyway, look, let's face it, if I buy a house in September and wind up closing on it in November, your first mortgage payment's going to be in January. So if by January, February, I'm in a position where I've recovered the premium, that's not a bad deal. We don't want to pay a premium, but if we have to do it, that's kind of an easy one to rationalize and say, well, now I'm in a position where if you take the national average for how long people stay in a home for 10 years, boy, are you going to do really well over the next 10 years in that home in almost all parts of the country. Because when you look at the demographics, when you look at birth rates from, what you want to look at is birth rates from about 33 years ago. Because the birth rates from 33 years ago represent the first-time home buyer today. So when you go back to 1986 and 1987 and look at those birth rates, the subsequent years had birth rates that climbed. So as difficult as it is today to find a home, we know that a lot of inventory is not coming on the market. We know that people who normally would have sold their homes so they could go to assisted living or long-term care facilities are saying, I don't want to go there. So they're not putting their homes on the market. So you're going to have more demand, less supply, and Economics 101 tells you that that's going to be very, very supportive for pricing. And if you have an economy that appears to be now in a position over the next 12 months to overcome the detrimental aspects to employment that we've seen, long-term, you're going to be in a really smart position. So these are the things you want to take a look at for just your future and what smart moves would be looking ahead for you financially.
I think it's such a breath of fresh air to hear that sentiment. And I'm so happy that you kind of outlined that for all the realtors who are watching, because as you know, as well as I do, a vibe in the marketplace is, and I love how you address this at MBS Highway constantly, of the bubble. But yet to your point of the demand that's coming behind it, especially the millennial market that is hitting that first-time homebuyer age that's changed because of demographics, all of that stuff supports that we are going to be doing well in housing for some time to come. And I think real estate agents who are out there, who are getting outbid constantly, who are feeling that pain, they need to hear that and to be supportive of that. Something you touched on in relation to recouping the cost of the premium of overbidding on a home, which I thought is a great example for every agent to hear. On the mortgage side of things, we hear constantly from our clientele of, well, is this the best time to be able to lock in my interest rate, or are they going to get lower? A little bit of a conversation of what's six inches in front of my nose compared to what could be in the future. And I know you have so much content to share on this, but I would love to kind of tie that into the housing side, but also the refinance side, as far as people who are saying, is this the lowest they can get and should I wait?
So, as you probably know, we've made some extraordinary calls in interest rates. We were on every major network, and even within the mortgage industry, back about 15 months ago, when the 10-year Treasury was at 2.75%, I made a pretty crazy call at the time and said it's going to 1% and forecasted a recession in 2020, the beginning of 2020. And everybody fought me on it and thought I was nuts. But there were several people that, based upon past experience with me, had really taken heart to that and planned for it. And sure enough, the 10-year Treasury did go to 1%. And then when it did, every media outlet had me come on. I said, okay, where are we going from here? And I said, well, it's going to 0.5%. And then people, you could play the tape. It's all out there for people to watch. On Fox Business, the guys, I want to debate you on that, and not believing it. But sure enough, it did go to 0.5% from there. So the things that we looked at were downward pressure on rates based upon high levels of debt, based upon a slowing economy, based upon a recession that was looming. And we did a recession February 9th before COVID hit the US. All of those things led us to believe that we were going to be in a very favorable interest rate environment. Now, we're still going to be in a favorable interest rate environment, but while we might see rates drop a little bit more, the bulk of the drop in rates that we've seen has already taken place. So whereas before we were telling everybody, you're going to see much lower rates, don't pay points, don't pay upfront MI, pay the higher monthly cost in monthly MI because you're going to refinance. Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to pay a lot of closing costs if you can avoid it. Take the higher rate, not the lower rate, with less cost because it takes you 5 or 6 years to recover those, because you're going to be refinancing in about a year. So that was the advice then. Now we feel that there is a limit to the downside in mortgage rates. Treasuries may drop further, but there comes a time where there's a disconnect where treasuries can drop further, but it's if economic conditions get considerably worse, causing treasuries to drop further, there comes a point in time where mortgage rates may respond for the first time in a long while in the opposite direction due to fears as to will the economy be so bad that people may not be paying their mortgage? And there's a premium. Remember, treasuries are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Mortgage rates are based upon people making payments on their mortgage and collateral in real estate. So while it's still very safe, there may come a time where the economy gets so bad that you get that disconnect and treasuries go down, but mortgage rates go up. And that's happened in the past. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is there's a capacity issue. We're already struggling with capacity in the mortgage industry right now. So there's mortgage companies don't have that incentive to say, well, let's drive rates down further to bring business in. They can't handle the business that's coming in at the present time. And then you have regulators and you have companies, you have organizations like the FHFA who run Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and that represents currently about 70% of all mortgages are going to funnel through there. And they just put this mortgage tax on, which is going to probably be about 0.25% to an interest rate on a refinance. So you have outside factors that I think will preclude interest rates from a real significant drop lower, although we could see a little bit of a drop. I think the risks are to the upside greater than they are to the downside. I'm not saying they can't go lower, so please don't misinterpret this. But there are factors out there that if you were to say, okay, I'd be an odds maker, I think that it's probably this is a prudent time to look at doing that refinance, doing that purchase, and getting those low rates. Now, would interest rates that are 0.3% or 0.25% higher make it non-feasible for you to do your refinance? Probably not, but why not get that extra benefit while you can, which is today? And then there's one more element to that, and that is the element that most people don't think about, and that's time. So let's just say if you do this today, you start saving more rapidly. If you waited 60 days, and let's just say the rates could go up, so you could have missed the boat. But let's just say rates do go down. So yeah, you won, you got that lower rate. But what about the money that you would have saved in the past 2 to 3 months that you were taking advantage of? How long does it take? It would probably take years for the incremental benefit that you get to outweigh the amount of savings that you are going to be enjoying over the next 2 to 3 months while you play the waiting game. And it could be longer, and you could never get an incremental savings. You miss the boat altogether. So based upon all those things, I think it's probably prudent to consider acting sooner than later when it comes to looking at a refinance. Now, purchase is different. Purchase is, you got to find the home that works for you, because you don't want to necessarily rush into a decision and then be in a home for 10 years that you're less satisfied with. And I realize that it's not easy today, but this is the time to take action in both areas.
Yeah, wonderful. A couple of things I want to unpack there, and we have just a ton of amount of realtors and loan officers who are watching. So please, on the Facebook Live, if you have a question for Barry, we'll try to sneak it in at the end, but we'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Barry, a couple of things to unpack there. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you while I have it front of mind for the service you did to our industry, for the forbearance conversations that you raised your hand, one of the first people to raise your hands, to really bring education to us as loan officers on how to speak to our clients when that onslaught of questions came. And there were many, it was plentiful. And I was certainly one of the ones that took your advice and became a beacon of information within my networks and really educated people on why forbearance has to be the last option possible by all means. We're kind of coming out of that period, so to speak. And I think it's a good segue to kind of speak a little bit about how the unemployment is affecting of what could be happening with that, what the true unemployment is that's out there, and as it relates to this forbearance periods that are potentially coming up. And maybe we can even just kind of ride that right into the potential effects of what the election outcome could mean for us in our industry.
Yeah. Back in March, it was a dark time. And you bring up not just forbearance, which happened a little bit afterwards in April, but at the time in March where the Fed, with good intentions, was purchasing so many mortgage-backed securities that they created an imbalance in the market, and they created these margin call issues, because when you lock rates in, you have a protective mechanism that you have to actually bet on mortgage bond prices getting worse when you create a lock-in, so that you can offset any changes in the marketplace. Well, the Fed didn't realize what they were doing, and I was very fortunate that because we have a good understanding of this and because of the connections I have to get in front of the Fed and to explain this to them and get them to stop that. But many mortgage companies and real estate companies were on the precipice of really being in true jeopardy because of these margin calls that were occurring. So we feel very blessed to have done that. And then when the forbearance issue came to be, that was like, gosh, we were out of the frying pan and into the fire. So it was just one after another we were getting hit with this stuff. So I think that when you look at forbearance today, we're probably going to be closing that window at some point in the future, but it's not a free ride. It is something where you do have to make up that money at some point in time. So it's not free, it's just a delay. And the problem that you have with the forbearance issue is that there is a negative side to it. There can be some negative hits. We've seen them on people's credit because you're not seeing the payments come through. So even though it doesn't necessarily show in an adverse way, an underwriter could look at that and see that you didn't make your payments that you wanted to forbearance. So many lenders are a bit hesitant to want to approve loans in that with that type of a history. So this is something that will follow you around. Now, look, if you have to do it, you have to do it. There's no question about it. But to anyone there that's able to avoid it, it's best to avoid it, but certainly take advantage of it if you have no other alternative. So that's what it's designed for. That's who it's designed for, to help the people that really need it.
Yeah, so good. So speaking to, us kind of entering this incredible next 60 days leading up to November, I'd be remiss if I didn't recall back in 2016, I'll never forget it. I was a new member of MBS Highway, falling in love with the ability to be able to get the alerts from you. And I got to tell you, out of the hundreds that you've gotten right, the one that I can't forget is right before the call of announcing Donald J. Trump as the 45th president. You sent out an alert to lock to tell everybody, lock everything. And thank goodness I listened, because as you recall better than me, I'm sure, the market fell off the cliff right after that. And it took a long time to recover. Speaking to the loan officers and to the real estate agents, there's so much conversation that is happening specific to, well, how is the market's going to react if this person wins? How is the market going to react if this person wins? This is a very apolitical show. We really keep it to the facts, and I know you do too, which I appreciate. But to that conversation, which is happening, entering the conversation that's happening in the minds of agents and loan officers everywhere, kind of speak to, if you can, some insight on what is the potential outcome or what thoughts you have on that.
So when it came to the previous election in 2016, all the polls were indicating that Hillary Clinton would win. But, polls are misleading because the election isn't determined by polls. It's determined by two things: what people actually do, and maybe they're less vocal or less willing to say that, but in private they may behave a certain way. So we thought about that and contemplated that in our forecast. And the other thing that we tried to be very cognizant of is that, unfortunately, the election in the United States might come down to 6 states. The rest of the states, the polling in those states almost is irrelevant because they're going to go one way or another. So whether it's 80%, 50%, 60%, it doesn't matter, because it really comes down to the 6 states that are, as we know, the name of this is called the swing states. And that's what really determines the elections, not something that I'm making judgment over. It's just that's what's factual right now, the way that it occurs. So when you focus on that, that's really going to give you at least a better idea. And we felt that if Donald Trump were to become president, the stock market would be very, very happy with that, because due to the polls, the stock market was already on the decline. So we thought there would be a reversal. Everybody was on one side of the bet that Hillary Clinton would win. It means bonds felt Hillary Clinton would win. Stocks felt that Hillary Clinton would win. And when the reverse started to appear that it would be coming together, well, stocks went on a tear and bonds sold off to chase the rally in stocks. That money went to work in the stock market. As a result, rates went up. Applying the same principles here, A lot of the poll numbers are showing that Joe Biden has a very large increase, but it's still early. 60 days before the election, or 70 days, or whatever it is today, that is a long time, and much can change. The other thing is, let's remember the swing states determine it. And let's remember the other factor is that while people might be more vocal for one candidate or another openly, there is potentially a difference of what they might do in the privacy of a voting booth, or maybe this year in the privacy of when they fill out a ballot and put it in the mail. So these are things that we have to contemplate. And the bottom line is just like you, I don't know who's going to win this election, but I will tell you this. The major problem that would occur with either candidate winning the election is, number one, will they raise taxes? And you got to go back in the history books, but during the 1929 stock market crash and the subsequent recession, it turned into the Great Depression 3 years later, when we saw taxes being raised. And there's talk of that potentially now. I just hope that somebody looks at a history book and sees that raising taxes did not bode well in the past, and maybe they should hopefully evaluate how that would happen today before taking that tact. The other thing is that I hope that whoever wins the election, that we would have, as we've had almost always in the history of the U.S. Now, we started to, when Donald Trump won last time, see a lot of protests. You just want a peaceful transfer of power. That's something we've always prided ourselves on, that our country has seen this peaceful transfer of power. But, that's the one thing that kind of scares me a little bit, is that you just want to keep, you want people to be safe and peaceful and healthy and kind and respectful. And I just hope and pray that that's what happens, regardless of who wins the election, that we all realize that we're in this together. And, we may not like who the person is that's in charge, but we should respect that, and we should respect the wishes of the way that that the elections are done. So that's what I'm hoping for. But something in the back of my mind has me a bit concerned, based upon the things that I'm seeing happen out there right now, that I'm a little bit nervous about that.
I share your same hope, and my prayers go to us realizing that hope is what comes to fruition. And I agree with you. And certainly we hope that the best of this country shows up after the election, regardless of the outcome. I couldn't agree more with you. Barry, as more and more loan officers and agents continue to jump on, this has been such an incredible State of the Union. I want to give a little bit of substance to, from a business building standpoint, because so much of MBS Highway, what it's meant to be a member of that family for these last 4 or 5 years, it's been growing my business exponentially, really plugging into the systems that you've built, really plugging into the culture of what MBS Highway is. And so a couple things I want to speak to. I did my homework, so I want to make sure you recognize this on this next statement. I know that you were 26 years old when you wrote your first mortgage app to Milton Akbar. And I was 19. I was 19 years old when I wrote my first mortgage application. I'm 40 years old this year. And, as I mentioned to you 5 years ago, when by the grace of God, I was introduced to you and your team, it really had me change my focus of being a relationship maker and being someone that brought the image of a mortgage loan originator, something you speak to so much in your daily updates, of becoming a mortgage originator and that image of what it means to your community. With the daily videos, daily updates that MBS Highway speaks to and provides, you, Dan, Megan, the whole team, which I cherish, I really have gone all in the last few years on video within incorporating my business. And certainly this relationship that we've built for the first time us talking, there's a relationship because of video. The question I have with that precursor is, this next decade, there's a whole generation of mortgage originators that are coming into our business. There's a generation that have been doing business a certain way and see the writing on the wall that business is being done differently. Kind of speak to, if you can, both on the real estate agent and loan officer side, what you see with your history, your experience, and what you promote every day through MBS Highway, what you see as the best practices moving forward for the modern mortgage loan originator or real estate agent.
First of all, thank you. And yeah, the Milton Akbar story is a great one. When I was a kid, I used to sell stereo equipment out of the trunk of my car. And then from there, I got on a whim, I got into the mortgage business. And when I did get into the mortgage business, I went from there into buying real estate and flipping properties and renting properties out. And from doing that, one night I sat down with the guy that was doing my mortgage on one of the investment properties. And here I am, young guy in my early to mid 20s. And I'm asking about the mortgage business. And I just decided to just make the jump and get into it. And at the time, my twins were 3 months old when I did it. So I really had to make sure that I was going to be able to do a good job here. And failure was not an option. So when I started, one of the homes that I had sold, that I flipped, was a gentleman by the name of Milton Akbar. And I was a good kid. I took care. I always was very responsible, very nice, and really wanted to help him and do a good job for him. And he took a liking to me. And I just said, hey, Milt, I'm getting into the mortgage business. I really am not at all, know exactly what's going on, but I promise I'll do the very best I can. I'll get all the answers to you. Would you do me the honor of being my first mortgage application? And he said, sure, Barry. So I sold him his home, and I did his mortgage. And then, Joseph, honest to God, I sold him a stereo system for his new home on top of it. So Milt was just a wonderful, kind man. And I actually put him in my book, which will be released October 27th. So that tells a little bit about, how relationships are so important. And it's really the same, to answer your question, if you're in the real estate business or in the mortgage business, you can't fake it. You have to really be an advisor. You don't want to be transactional. And you can't just say you're an advisor. You have to learn these concepts and put the time in. We have a certification that we've created called CMA Certified Mortgage Advisor, but it will apply to realtors too, and understanding all the things that are really important about market-driven conditions and how to articulate why real estate is a good investment. So really have that education so that when you talk to somebody, listen, in everything I did, I felt education was so important. When I was a kid selling stereos out of the trunk of my car, I had to read every single thing I could, so I knew everything about electronics and stereo equipment that I possibly could. So when I spoke to someone, I really knew. When I got into the real estate flipping, I wanted to make sure I understood every single aspect I could so I could speak in an educated manner. It was the same thing when I got into the mortgage business. Now I was kind of young in the mortgage industry at 26 years old, dealing with people that were a lot more experienced than I was, had many homes in their lifetime. And yet they were going to listen to this kid. I had to show them very quickly that they were dealing with somebody who took this really seriously. And we have to remember that the way our brain works, and this if you're listening, anytime you've dealt with a salesperson, is that you kind of get a feeling in the first 5 to 10 minutes if you want to do business with this person or not. And I'm not saying if you don't get a great feeling initially, they can't overcome it. But let's face it, it's an uphill climb. You're going to be a lot more critical. But if you really like the person, you'll tend to be more forgiving. So what causes you to like that person? The main function is trust. And it's my conviction. For as long as I've been self-employed and as many years I've been, able to talk to people and work with people. And I, thank God I've had a lot of experience in that. I will tell you that it's two things. Number one is knowledge. And are you able to give information to this person so that they feel smarter and they feel they're learning from you? So that's a really important element. If they feel they're teaching you and you're the salesperson, well, you're just a salesperson. Okay. But are you giving really valuable insights and really good advice? Advisor needs to advise. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, the most important way to build trust, it's going to sound crazy, but tell them everything bad about the transaction that you can. And this is so difficult. I'll tell you, Joseph, in South America, there are these spider monkeys that are very valuable to capture. And these spider monkeys are nocturnal, so it means they come out just in the evening. But these hunters realized a way to capture them. So they take a big, heavy box and they just ventilate it with some of the monkey's food. And the monkey goes crazy and tries to kind of figure out a way in, and they're smart. So the hunters leave a very thin slit in the box. The monkey's able to get their hand in, they take the food, but their clenched fist can't get out of the slit. Now, all they need to do before the hunters come and pick them up is let go, and they'll have everything they want, the freedom that they need. But they don't do that, and they essentially trap themselves. And salespeople trap themselves because they sound desperate, because they're worried about losing the commission, because they're worried about losing the transaction, when what they really should be doing is letting go. What they really should be doing is treating every customer, and it's easier said than done. Okay, so don't think, I could do. No, you probably don't do this. Make believe that customer, your daughter, your son, your parent, your best friend. And what you want to do is, instead of being on opposite sides of the table, put yourself metaphorically on the same side of the table with your arm over their shoulder and looking at this transaction together and using your expertise, because you're supposed to be more experienced and have a greater level of understanding as to what to watch out for and what could go wrong. Don't sell them, protect them. And once you do that, then not only do you have that sale, but every single person they know is going to be referred to you. And that's just an incredible way to build your business, because remember, we have to have success goals that we go for, right? We have to have success goals that we look to achieve. And those are really important. So you have to have those. And, you hit those, reach higher and set them a little bit further, just out of your reach, so you could strive for them and you'd be amazed what you could do. But that won't make you happy. How many people do we know that are super successful that are not happy?
Amen.
Happiness will help you. You'll help get to happiness by having fulfillment. And it may be a little different from everybody, but fulfillment often comes from helping others, from doing good in the world, from just feeling that you have a sense of purpose of what you're doing is bigger than you. You're doing good for others. So that is something you can't fake. That is something that just transcends. That becomes an aura about you that people get that feeling right away, and you become like a magnet, because people know that they don't have a target on their back. They know that you will always put their best interests in front of their commission. And that's the advice that I would give to everyone, is make your customer feel that way. And if you can get that, then you really become magnetic. And that's what you want. You ever see people that are magnetic, that are charismatic? Now, I don't mean people that are, flashy and you could read through it and you could see it's just maybe they're entertaining, but there's no depth there. I'm talking about that you really, really care about what's right for them, and you're willing to prove it by being vulnerable and putting at risk your commission, putting at risk your sale to point out to them things that they need to be aware of. And it will change your career. I promise you that.
Barry, I just want to say thank you so much for that inspirational moment. Without a doubt, I hope that if any day today you remember that you can be fulfilled knowing that you've changed the trajectory of my entire career, and that has spilled over to my life from a personal development side and certainly from a professional side. I could not be more gracious of your time. I could not be more gracious of what you just shared. And certainly I know all the loan officers and real estate agents who are watching, you certainly just served them with a massive, massive amount of uplift. So that is a super answer to the question of what does the originator real estate agent in this next decade, what should they strive for? Thank you for answering that question in full. Barry, I just want to real quick give a huge shout out to the MBS Highway. And as you speak a little bit of a 60-second commercial on it, I'm going to share something that I have set up here to be able to just kind of have you speak to if there's any loan officers who are watching right now, if there's any real estate agents that have loan officer relationships, to get them plugged into what I feel to be the flagship blue chip, the only place to go resource to become that knowledgeable person in your marketplace. If you can, just kind of give us a little bit of MBS Highway, how someone can get connected to it.
Well, you're very, very kind, and you don't have to do that. But what I would tell you is this: is that we're here to help, and I think that we can make a difference for you. I really believe we can. We genuinely believe in eating our own home cooking. So the things that I'm talking to you about are our principles, and this is something this is much greater than just me. This is the wonderful and amazing team that we have here that care so much about doing good, and that's the way we look at it first. We look at it first of doing good and helping others, and the rewards, have been, we've been blessed with more rewards than we could ever imagine. But we don't look at the rewards first. We look at doing good first and helping people and really making a difference. So that's why we constantly are striving to transform this, to be relevant, to be current, to never be stale, to always give more than what was promised. So that's the real key. We have a very simple philosophy in our company, and that is spoil our customers, spoil our employees. That's it. Very simple. That's the company philosophy. And if we take a look at our employees and make sure that our employees are well taken care of, that they're appreciated, that helps them to live that philosophy with the people that they come into contact with. And with our customers, it's the same way. You know, we have a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation for their trust. And what we want to do is we always want to exceed their expectations by continuing to do more than what they had expected, than more than what they bargained for, without it being part of the deal. You know, in life, this is the magical component. We're so used to like making a deal and you do this, I'll do that, and that's what it is. And everybody's just trying to get in game. What if you said, okay, that this is the deal, right? I know that this is what you bargained for, and this is what I promised I'd give you, but I don't want anything else from you. I'm going to give you more. I don't want anything in return, and I don't want anything else, but I'm going to acknowledge how much I appreciate you. How does that make the other person feel, or the other party feel, or your customer feel, or your employee feel, or your spouse feel, or your significant other, or your child feel, or anybody that's in your life? How does that make them feel? They feel appreciated, they feel acknowledged, they feel that there is a true sense of care and love that's there, which then, in many cases, and it doesn't have to be you don't expect anything back, gives you the wonderful surprises that you get in life when people think about you and want to, you know, the best. I have so many relationships in my life where we just outdoing each other, you know, and that's the greatest thing, is that you want to do for them and you don't want anything in return, but they want to do even more for you, and those are the types of things that become magical. Really, that's what it's all about.
I love it. I love it. And to that point, I want to give back to you one more time and say, if I could, just remind everybody, where can they go to get this incredible pre-order opportunity, to be able to get just a great story. It's your story. It's an entertaining story. It's an emotional story of someone who came from very little, who built an unbelievable legacy. I can't wait to get my hands on it at the end of October, but just kind of speak to Money in the Streets, how someone can get their hands on it.
So I'm really proud of the book. I'm proud of it. Yes, there's stories that are mine, but they're not about me. They're just through me, and they apply to everyone. And as I said, it will help you through tougher times, maximize the good times, show you how to see opportunities. And I think it will be something that will bring some inspiration to you to bring out the best in yourself. You know, I think that it'll be very, very meaningful. And it's an easy read. It's a page turner. It's an easy read. You know, I'm dear friends with Tony Robbins, and Tony does not do this, but he wrote this beautiful piece in the beginning of the book. Randy Zuckerberg, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's sister, Randy wrote this unbelievable foreword because she felt compelled to do it. Donna Zuckerberg, Mark's other sister, she wanted to edit and review the book. Wow. And it just, you know, there are lots of stories in there that are very entertaining, but very inspirational. And you can understand by piecing this all together, just a roadmap to helping you be very, very successful. And it's really out there for everyone. It really is. The opportunities are endless. We just pass them by. You know, we just have to see them. You know, they're elusive. You know, for example, I'll give you one before we go. And of the dozens and dozens of stories, I'll give you one from the book.
Thank you.
So when I first got into the mortgage business, you know, it was tough. I had these twins. I went to go visit real estate agents, but they didn't trust this young kid with an important transaction that they were going to have that was very meaningful for their income. And, you know, boy, I used to even resort to bringing pictures of the twins and say, listen, I got to do a good job for you. So that's how desperate I was to try and do this, right? But at night, what I would do is I would actually knock on people's doors and ask them to refinance. Some people threw me out. Some people even called the cops.
Wow.
But 16 people did refinances with me my third week in the business, and that was records that nobody had ever seen before. So you can do things just by thinking out of the box and seeing where there's opportunity and just going where no one else has gone. But I took that understanding that was, I just needed to talk to people. So anyone that was my customer that anyone that where I was a customer that I gave money to, the dry cleaning, the pizza place, the hair cutter that I had, any place where I was giving money, I felt, at least for a period of time, I had a captive audience. So I would tell everybody what I did and how I hoped to help them. And that resulted in huge amounts of business. I took that to the extreme, to where I drive up the Garden State Parkway and the New Jersey Turnpike,
And there would be toll booths. There's a lot of toll booths. And this is, I'm dating myself, but this is back before the easy passes. You had to actually put exact change in a basket. I had the exact change, but I went to where I could talk to somebody.
Wow.
I gave them the exact change and my business card. And I would go to the toll collector and I would say, hey, I only had a couple of seconds. Hey, man, if I could ever help you save you money on a refinance or help you with a home, I'll do a great job for you. And just give them the money and give them my card. And man, my buddies would give me so much crap. We'd be on our way to a ball game or something. They're like, Barry, you got to do this. Why can't you go in the express lane? And they all gave me a hard time until one day, this guy by the name of Steve Horton, he called me up from the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority. And not only did I did his loan, but I did an additional 16 loans for everybody there. Now, I promise you this. I was not the only person in mortgage or real estate that drove up and down the New Jersey Turnpike.
No doubt.
But I was the only one who saw that as a potential opportunity. And all we have to do is just change the way we look at things to look at the opportunities that are all around us. And the rewards are beyond your wildest dreams.
Barry, today is going to be a milestone day in my career, and I just want to thank you. You're a legend in my eyes. You've served me from a distance for so long. I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to highlight you and all you've meant to me and so many others. To you, your family, to the MBS Highway family, we thank you, we love you, and please continue to do what you do. I can't wait for the opportunity, hopefully, to one day meet you in person, sir.
Well, we're going to make that happen. God bless you, my brother. And thank you for all the good you do. And everybody watching, just wishing you good wishes and health and happiness. And just remember, if I were to define happiness in one word, I'd say it was progress. I'd say that, just keep making progress, and that tends to make you happy. When you want to lose 20 pounds like I wanted to lose, and I lost 10, I'm not at my goal, but I'm happier, right? So, progress is happiness. So constantly make progress in your life.
Fantastic. Thank you, Barry. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
You bet, brother.
Take care.